Story 1. Girlfriend dumped me and hook up with high school bully the next day. Now he kicked her out. I and my girlfriend 25 have been dating since I was 18. I felt a connection with her and she was my first ever girlfriend. My first time and first everything. Our sex life was amazing and I wouldn't have traded her for anything. But a few months ago, I went to this birthday party for a friend. She was just turning 22 and my girlfriend was busy and she couldn't make it, but somehow an image of me hugging the birthday girl, and mind you my friend is lesbian. It's like my GF forgot, and videos of me giving her a piggyback ride to her cake made its way to my girlfriend. When I got home, she immediately confronted me and asked if I did anything. I said no and practically told her what I did and pointed out I texted her throughout the night I was out and the fact that my friend is lesbian, but it still wasn't enough and she left me. To say the least, I was heartbroken and smoked some Zaza and hung out with a few buddies of mine to cheer myself up, and it worked a little, but 2 months later she contacted me and realized she was wrong and wanted to get back together, but I declined. She's calling me all bunch of names, saying it was a mistake, and has also confessed that she slept with someone the next night after breaking it off with me and offered to even give me a free pass to sleep with someone else and that she's sorry, and now I'm sitting and wondering if I'm the off for not taking her back. Comments. Fragrant Reserve 4832. She left to fuck that other guy. Her reasoning was BS and she knew it. Now the new guy doesn't want her. Now she wants to come back to her safe guy. Don't take her back, she is not good for you. The names she's calling you are because she feels entitled to you, to your support and help. She deserves what she is now, nothing and no one. Let her rebuild her life alone while you move on to bigger and better things. Pride of Cape Town. This is upvotes, you're the backup guy my dude. And you deserve better. NTA, and don't take her back. She'll probably just pick another meaningless fight and break up with you once she gets the wets for another guy. Emperor Swag. Girl like that lived in my dorm in college. She was dating a guy in the dorm, they would get into a fight every Friday like clockwork, and she'd say they needed a break. Then she'd spend the entire weekend sleeping with other guys. And come Sunday afternoon or Monday, they'd get back together. This lasted for a whole semester. Update, 7 hours later. It's been about 7 whole hours since I made that post. I haven't been able to sleep because Reddit was practically blowing my phone up with notifications and my ex is still trying to win me back. I got a few messages asking when me and her met and even blaming me and accusing me of not saying the full story or giving her a reason to think I was, so I'm here to clear the air a bit. Just a few hours ago after my Reddit post, my now ex-girlfriend has also confessed to me she has been texting this guy since I was 19, but the day after she broke up with me, they instantly got to fucking and got together. I actually know the guy pretty well, and to be honest, he is an ass. He used to bully me as a freshman in high school and he was a senior, mostly made insults about my weight. I was a fat kid in HS but slimmed down quickly after /, and he reached out to her and they got to talking. But then he cheated on her with another girl and admitted he sent those photos to her, just to stir up some shit and get her to break up with me. Not gonna lie, finding this out I wanted to beat this guy's ass, but I decided to be the bigger person. She's been begging for hours and I have just gotten around to blocking her, giving me a moment of peace. Regarding on how me and my girlfriend met, I might have or might have not snuck into a party where alcohol was present. She approached me first and I was honest about my age at the time /17 /, but we still chatted, became friends and eventually started dating a few months after I turned 18 because she and I had common interest and was cute, so I shot my shot. We started fucking on the third date and the rest is history after that, but during our dating period I've never hit on another girl, nor cheated, and even shared my social media passwords with my GF to further prove my loyalty like she wanted, and I got to see hers, but I never really looked because I trusted her. But now that I blocked her, I'm going to continue to heal and maybe later use that free pass like the comments suggested with unlimited usage. Thanks for all your advice. I might update this, but if I don't, thank you for all your advice. Comments. Silly _Southerner. So, let me get this straight. She was entertaining this other guy for an extended period of time while you were together. She accused you of cheating with someone she knew was a lesbian, and broke up with you for it. She basically left you and immediately got together with and fucked him, and would likely still be with him if he hadn't cheated on her with someone else. This other guy is an asshole you strongly dislike. Any one of these would be reason enough to cut her off. Fucking/dating someone you know is a scumbag is enough reason to cut her off. Dumping you, especially over such a stupid and obviously fake reason, she was looking for an excuse to go jump on his dick, is a reason to cut her off. Her spending so much time obviously setting up her next guy while she was with you is reason to cut her off. I'm not seeing any reason to take her back, though. No reason to fight this guy over her, either. She's clearly not worth it. You're better off without her in your life. Epitome HD. The classic cheater behavior: cheat, hide it, and accuse the partner of cheating, all to try to hide what the cheater did. Let's dive into the second story. Story 2. Story 2. Found out the truth. Boyfriend at fault, dumped him. Ex wants to play blame game. My boyfriend's sister, Chrissy, pulled a prank on me 2 months ago. She left about 50 gnomes in my front yard. No warning, they were just there. I called people up and asked them, but no one would tell me. I guess this is part of the prank. I fucking had no clue what was going on. Eventually the kids in the neighborhood started picking them off, so I brought them inside my garage. 2 of them were pretty cute, so I cleaned them up and put them in the house. I waited for someone to come clean. But no one did. After 3 weeks, I decided I was going to just donate them. A few friends asked if they could have some and I let them. I started giving them to people who commented on one being interesting or cute. I told my boyfriend about my army and he laughed. I thought he might have done it, but he said he honestly didn't. So I believed him. Well, he went on a 4-week trip with his family to Europe. I got a few emails from him, but we were both busy. I went on a trip myself, for work and for pleasure, so when he got back, he asked how the gnomes were treating me and I let him know most of them had found new homes. He got really silent and asked how many I had left. I told him 10. He asked who took them and said we needed to get them back. I was confused. It had been 2 months, and the gnomes were kind of a funny story, but I don't remember everyone who took one, let alone the kids who picked about 10 off the lawn. He then told me they belonged to Chrissy, who thought I had just stored them in my garage, which is why she didn't pick them up before the trip. Chrissy is his sister. Apparently Chrissy has been pulling the gnome army prank for years. And I am the bitch who gave away her army. My boyfriend was furious with me and asked why I would do that. I told him he should have come clean and I would have just kept them in my garage for her to pick up later. He said it wasn't how the prank worked. He said he needs to rethink the relationship. He wants me to get them back, as they are dear to Chrissy. Chrissy doesn't know yet. I am not sure what to do about this. I had a few people offer to return their gnomes, but the rest of the people said they gave them away to so-and-so and didn't know where they were now. This is such a surreal situation and I have no fucking clue what to do about it. I don't see how I was wrong, but I feel bad. So, what can I do? Relevant comments. Shakwintosh. They have no reason to try to hold you accountable for not following the unreasonable rules of a game you didn't know about. Give back the gnomes you have, but don't feel like you have to acquiesce and go out of your way to try to recover the gnomes that are lost. That's not your business. They left a bunch of stuff on somebody else's property, unannounced and unidentified, and you shouldn't be blamed for cleaning up your property. Oop. I am willing to give back the ones I have and have gotten 3 back from people. The _humble_braggart. Please show them this thread, so they can realize how fucking stupid everyone thinks it is to play a prank on someone. Abandon the materials used for the prank for 2 months without owning up that they had done it and requesting the gnomes back, and then getting angry when the gnomes, which had been abandoned for 2 months, are disposed of. Fucking stupid. This is one of the most ludicrous things I have ever read on this sub. You weren't wrong because you asked around to see who the gnomes belonged to before giving them away. It's their own fault for doing a stupid prank like that, then leaving you in the dark for months. Had they left the gnomes on your lawn one night then collected them after you saw them, the prank could have been really cute and funny. If your boyfriend leaves you or holds this over your head, good riddance. Oop. I just don't know what would make him think I would keep them. I am one of the neatest people I know. I don't keep junk around. I have a few things that I kept out of sentiment, but if I don't need it I don't keep it. Update. I decided to bite the bullet and talk to Chrissy. I brought the gnomes I had to her house and knocked on the door. Chrissy's mom answered and asked me in. I was tired of the immaturity and mind games. My boyfriend has been sending me threatening get me more gnomes bitch type texts. I could see a lot of red flags, or red hats, if you are so inclined. I wanted Chrissy to have her gnomes back and just get it over with. When I handed Mrs. Mom the open box, she asked where I got these. She seemed really upset I even had them. I told her the story. Pretty much what I said in the last post, but with some more detail. Her reply was, Joe has been telling a totally different story. She seemed really hurt about the whole thing, and while I wanted to make a quick getaway, I was fucking curious. Blah, blah, blah. Mrs. Mom told me a little bit of the background. I am not going to repeat everything she said, cause some of it sad and pathetic and a little too dark for a post about a gnome invasion. The gnome army belonged to Chrissy's late boyfriend Steve. Steve and Chrissy used to put them in people's yards and then demand another member for their army. So the gnomes came from people Steve and Chrissy knew over a period of about 5 years. Steve passed away, Chrissy stopped the gnome pranks, and put them into storage. She has not pulled the prank in almost 2 years now, but freaks out if someone mentions getting rid of the gnomes or even moving the box. I felt like an asshole, but Mrs. Mom thanked me for bringing some of them back. She did say the annoying line, "You should have kept them even if you didn't know who they belonged to." She did say she was going to replace the gnomes in the boxes with other ones and hope Chrissy didn't notice. Not sure this is a smart idea. She said she wanted to believe me but that this is likely the last time she would want me in her house. Gee, thanks. I said that was fine, I had no intention of staying in a family who pulled weird pranks then blamed the victims. One bridge burned. I mean, I understand she is likely upset because Chrissy apparently doesn't handle any mention of Steve well. She is likely going to be upset and never speak to the person at fault again. Which is likely me. How I got them out of a storage unit 3 hours away. The mystery will likely haunt their family for years. As for my now ex-boyfriend, I went to his house and asked him why he pulled the prank. His answer was stupid and telling I don't know. He wouldn't answer me and he wouldn't tell me what was going on. He said he just wanted to do something cute, then it got out of hand, and he thought I would keep them. Something about having his own little secret made him happy. I got my things from his room and left. I told him that our mutual friend Jake would bring his stuff by at a later time. Jake agreed to this and said Joe's story was BS. I guess Joe told people I got the gnomes out of the storage unit and put them in the yard to get attention. That totally makes sense. I guess it was spiteful to do, but I did send Chrissy a message on FB. Chrissy, I don't think we will be friends after this. I know you want to believe your brother. But I did not take your gnomes, I did not know why they were in my yard or even that you had them. Please understand I would never aim to hurt, steal, or take from you. Your brother admitted to putting them in my yard, though I have no idea why he did it. I got an okay back. Then she blocked me. I blocked Joe and his family. I am not sure what to do now, but it has been a really interesting few weeks for sure. Relevant comments. On being told she has a great story to tell people. Yeah, it's pretty weird. Has to be the strangest end to a relationship I have ever had. And I have some doozy ex-boyfriends. Either this is a troll post or you people have way too much time on your hands. Imagining a bunch of adults having a family feud over gnomes is just ridiculous. Oop. I didn't feud. Why the fuck would I want an argument about gnomes? I returned what I had, I got rid of the ones that were in the yard, and the issue was the fact my boyfriend lied and made it into a huge deal. Final comment from Oop. I can't even take this seriously. It is a shitty thing to do to anyone, but the fact that Chrissy had some sort of secret gnome army belonging to a dead boyfriend seems so creepy. And my ex is just. Yeah. It was an asshole thing to do, gnome or no gnome. Story 3. Confronted my parents after their clear favoritism. I am the third of 4 siblings and have always felt like an afterthought. Lori, Chuck, and Jade. Jade has always gotten the first and best from my parents and each other. I get the leftovers if I'm lucky. I haven't gotten a birthday present from any of my siblings in about 10 years, but I still get asked to pitch in for group gifts for each of them every year. On Friday night we were having a family dinner and it honestly felt like every other sentence was a dig at me or a less than subtle brag by my siblings about something they have been given by my parents that I was denied. They talked about how nice almost all of our weddings were, but made sure to mention it was okay that my wife and I had a small low-key wedding. And it was okay, we loved it. But they brushed over the fact that my parents paid for all of my siblings' weddings. But not mine. Because somehow they couldn't afford it. Because they were saving up for Jade's wedding. They brought up how little student loans they have. Because my parents helped them. All of them lived on campus at expensive 4-year schools. I lived at home and went first to a very prestigious, very hard to get into, watchmaking school. I got paid to attend this school. So I paid rent at home. My parents paid for my tools. And I appreciate the help. I really do. But they paid $121.50K each for my siblings. They gave me $7K for tools. But to them it's equal. When I went back to school on my own I didn't ask for money and wasn't offered it. When my brother went back to school they covered everything without him even having to ask. There were many other small moments, comments about cars and other lifestyle choices, but what made me snap was my brother and his wife mentioning their marriage being so great because they do things like spontaneous dates, like the one they had the prior Friday night. The Friday night where my parents called my wife and I last minute to cancel plans. They had to eat dinner at our house because they had to watch Chuck's kids because of an emergency. Turns out that emergency was a dinner for Chuck and my Sil at Texas Roadhouse. I had spent hours making my grandpa's ziti and meatballs with homemade marinara because it's my mom's favorite. I wanted more than anything to scream at them, but instead I got up and left without saying a word, and my wife followed me. When my mom called me later to ask why I left, I just explained exactly why. I explained the favoritism, the unfairness, and the fact that it doesn't feel like they care about me. She didn't say much, and I wasn't really looking for an explanation or an apology at the moment. I just felt like it was self-evident, but if she really didn't see it, I'd spell it out. Evidently, at least parts of what I said have been shared with my siblings, because now Chuck and Lori are furious at me and saying I ruined dinner, and my mom is upset that I am hurt. They say I'm immature for keeping score. Relevant comments? K-Bay 11. NTA. I don't know if this is the best solution. But, if I were you, I would write everything down just like you told us. Then send it to each one of my family members in a group chat. Then block them. I would move on from a relationship with them and love them from a distance. Sidebar, do you and all your siblings look exactly alike? OP. Jade is adopted. So no. But she has always been the baby and been treated as such anyway. My first draft had a lot more background, but it was way over the character limit. I look almost exactly like my paternal grandfather. I even have the same thing with my eyes, where they were blue when I was born but have formed a brown ring around the outside as I've grown up. So there's almost no possibility that I'm not my father's son, if that's what you are getting at. Jade is on my side incidentally, and she feels awful about the wedding thing, but she didn't find out about them not paying for my wedding until about 6 months ago, which is 6 months after her wedding. She assumed that they had paid for part of my house or something, because verbally that had always been the deal. But no, I got to pay for my own wedding, and my parents never honored the long-standing agreement of we have money saved for each of you and you can either use it for a wedding or anything else you want as a wedding gift when you get married. This is not Jade's fault. She didn't ask for any of this. She didn't even get to plan her own wedding. My mom and Lori did that. It was extravagant because Mom and Lori wanted it to be extravagant. Jade and her husband mostly hang out with my wife and I when they are in town. That has been a pattern for a long time. Family gives her stuff she didn't ask for to, I guess, make up for her early childhood sucking, and it's often at the expense of me. But since she was like 6, she'd always then share it back with me. Jade and I are fine. She shouldn't have been responsible for policing the fairness of the adults in our lives. Luke 55. Have you straight out laid all this information in front of your family like you told us? Or have you personally been taking all this in yourself? I'm glad your sibling Jade is empathetic with you. OP. The Friday night phone call with my mom was the first time I laid more than one incident at a time out for anyone. It's also the most thorough I've ever been about explaining any single incident, because it's the first time I didn't get interrupted. We were on the phone for 1.5 hours and I was talking for most of it. Update. So, update time. About a week after that post, my wife and I sat down with my parents and cleared the air. As several people suggested, I wrote down my thoughts and compiled, to the best of my knowledge, a listing and full accounting of the disparity in what my siblings were given over the years and what I was given. I did actually sit down and do the math, and it turns out that while I was at the Technicum I actually paid my parents more in rent than they ever paid for my tools. But the final reckoning came to between $370K on the high end, Jade, to $190K on the low end, Chuck, for how much my parents directly gave to my siblings that they never gave me. Sitting down and seeing the full amount all spelled out like that is probably the angriest I got during this whole mess. My parents had been aware there were discrepancies but really pushed back on the actual amounts until we sat down and went through each major gift/incident case by case, by which point my dad admitted my reckoning was likely conservative. That was more or less the end of any productive talk that night. My dad just claimed they didn't think it had gotten that bad but wouldn't give any details about how they could have possibly not noticed. In the interim, Chuck and Lori continued to escalate their anger, continued to call and text me, my parents, and extended family. I have not spoken to either of them directly since and don't expect to anytime soon. Roughly a week after that first sit down, my mom and dad asked to meet again. Lots was said, but the gist is this: they felt I was doing well and didn't need their help. Basically, they thought I would be fine without them. They admitted they probably live outside their means and gave more to my older siblings than they should have and could never have given me that much. They claim the timing of my wedding lined up with probably the most dire of their overspending/lack of saving, and that they literally did not have the funds to live up to their promise, especially as they were paying for Jade's tuition, car, and apartment at that time. They have offered money, they have offered to pay for vacations, a car, all kinds of stuff, but I think they don't really get it yet. My wife and I don't want their money, but we aren't really sure yet what an ideal resolution to this looks like. At least they have admitted they were unfair and are open to working things out. My wife and I spent Easter with Jade and her husband and my grandparents. My mom and dad came over in the evening. This seems to be more or less the new normal for now. Relevant comments. Kayla 123. So isn't about money, but it is. The further issue is how this morphed into the other 3 siblings doing birthdays for each other but ignoring yours. I think the first thing I would ask is that they explain to each of the other siblings how unfairly you've been treated, not only by the parents but also by the siblings, and ask that going forward, there be a far greater understanding of how things in the past were hurtful, and that while no particular remedy is outlined, things will likely have to be tilted your way going forward to make amends. Jade should answer why it is that she ignores your birthday but expects and solicits help for everyone else's. She doesn't get a pass. On some level, affirmation across the board as to what occurred and the overall unfairness of it is a place to start. Zero tolerance going forward for shenanigans like Chuck and Lori's emergency dinner. I have a feeling that Chuck and Lori are feeling pretty entitled in their core, so likely this isn't going to go down easy with them. Good luck. And I hope that your parents are sincere in their remorse and desire to make amends. Story 4. Mom wants me to give my sister the inheritance my grandma left for me. No way. This story is so weird. When I was 20 years / I was in a relationship / FWB situation with a guy, now 40M. It was messy, we were on and off for almost 5 years. He was always clear he wasn't ready for a relationship, and I was always clear I was madly in love with him. Every time I got tired of the situation and wanted to leave, somehow he convinced me to stay, because love is free, we have so much time together. He wasn't ready to commit. I asked for advice from my sister, now 42F, and she gave me some crappy advice like making him compromise, leaving stuff at his place and basically turning him into a boyfriend until it was too late for him to say no. I never managed to do that because I wanted him to love me as much as I loved him, not trap him. During the last night I spent at his place, he said he wanted to try something more serious with me, talked about some dates he planned etc., only to ghost me forever. It was hard. This was the first person I loved and he treated me like crap. 6 months passed and my sister came home. We both lived with our parents, saying she wanted to introduce her brand new boyfriend. She had a ton of boyfriends but she said this was the one. It was a dinner only with my parents at our home, so I was excluded and expected to just go out or chill in my room. The day came and while they were dining I ordered a pizza. I came downstairs only to find the guy I was with 6 months prior dining with my parents and sister. I was shocked but paid for my pizza and went to my room again to cry. After dinner was over I confronted my sister in front of our parents and begged her to not be with him. To be loyal to me, her little sister. There was no way she didn't know who he was. I had shown her pictures of him, his social media, where he worked, and she even knew where he lived. They never met because he didn't want to meet my family and never introduced himself. But she knew who he was and she excluded me from that dinner because she _knew_. She said they met by chance after we stopped seeing each other. She knew how hard that rupture was, she knew how painful it was to not have even a closure. He just stopped replying, not even blocking me, just left me there wondering after 5 years. She knew that during those 6 months I was still hurting. I know how it was my fault. I was too naive and thought that if I stayed long enough he would be ready for the relationship I wanted and would learn to love me. Stupid, I know. She defended herself saying it was a coincidence and chemistry was there, she loved him and she wasn't going to lose the love of her life. This stuff only happens once in lifetime. When I was in my early 20s I would believe that. However, now I know that there are 8 billion people in this world. There's no one love of your life. You can find the love of your life multiple times if you look for it. My parents sided with her and said I should get over it since we never have a real relationship. 1.5 years had passed. I've been excluded from multiple family gatherings because he would be around and my family thinks I will bring negative vibes since I'm still bitter about everything. I have no feelings for him but I feel betrayed by my sisters and my parents. He is just a pos in my eyes now. My sister is now 6 months pregnant. Due to her age she has been extremely pampered by my parents. She still lives at home and is going to move with him maybe 2 months after the baby is born. Then they're going to marry. In my culture it is normal that if a woman gives birth moves back, or stays, with her mom so the mom will help with the baby for the first months. A week ago my sister's friends made a surprise baby shower. I happened to be at home. I tried to talk to them. I don't know why, maybe because my sister and I were too close before and I'm sad we're no longer friends. But her friends acted like I wasn't there and only replied to me with yes, no or silence as if I was the one that created this mess. Or I was a homewrecker. Or I tried to seduce my sister's man. I was planning to move already, I was saving money etc., but after that I left immediately to a friend's house. I'm in the process of finding my own place. 2 days ago I received a call from my parents asking me to have a talk. I went to their house and they informed me that the diamond earrings my grandma left me will be given to my sisters. Those earrings have been in my family for 4 generations, and before my grandma died she said the earrings will be mine and my sister will receive a gold necklace. Grandma trusted my parents with the earrings, there was no will or anything, she just asked to give it to me when I was mature enough to appreciate/take care of a family heirloom. Now my parents think since my sister is getting married first and is having grandma's first great-grandchild, my sister should have it. I'm really mad now, they're robbing me of something my grandma left to me. I don't think my parents are evil. I think they were too worried my sister wouldn't marry due to her age. Again, in my culture a single woman in her 40s is something to worry for her family, and now that she's forming a family they want to reward her with everything. But I was the closest to my grandma, she made it clear the earrings will be mine, not my sister's, not the first one to marry or have a child but mine. After 2 years of being excluded in favor of my sisters, I gave the ultimatum to my parents: they give the earrings to me as my grandma intended or I will cut them from my life forever. Not gonna lie, the idea of cutting my family off is too painful, but I feel they already made me and still makes me so wrong. I don't want them in my life anymore. I feel a little shallow fighting over this, but those are only things my granddad left to them that are not entitled to them. Relevant comment/additional info. Southern Paley girl, you need to get a lawyer. Those earrings are your inheritance from your grandmother, and if it's documented in your grandmother's will, they can be sued and charged with stealing. I know you don't want to do this, but your family has already shown you that you don't matter to them at all. Do you honestly believe that they are going to care if you go no contact with them? Don't warn them that you are going to press charges for stealing, though will giving you the earrings will magically go missing. I'm sorry, Op, you deserve better, and I hope you stay strong enough to make boundaries that you will be able to stand by. Oop. Grandma left no will. She handed her jewelry, and most of them were family heirlooms, to everybody. My grandma was in the 4th generation within. I was 12 when my grandma died. She gave the earrings to my mom so I could have them when I was ready to take care of them properly. I always thought I would wear them on my wedding day or a very special one. Since I lived with my parents not so long ago, I never asked for them because mom has them in a safe in her room with other important stuff. I don't know if they would care. I think they don't believe they're doing anything wrong handing the earring to the sister that is having grandma's first great-grandchild. But if grandma wanted that, she would have stated the sister that has the first child must receive the earrings. She said they were mine. Honestly, the entitlement. Southern Paley girl, can you access the safe without your parents? Oop. Yes, I still have keys from the house. I'm worried that if I take them, there would be legal consequences. I have a text of my mom admitting the earrings that were meant for me. I could use our extended family that knows my grandma's last wishes, but I don't. It will be enough. Southern Paley girl, keep the text, take the earrings. Then go no contact with no explanation. They are well aware of why you are going no contact. Your family is not good people and you are not required to keep them in your life. Update. 5 months later. This is old, but I keep receiving messages every once in a while asking for an update. Yes, I got the earrings. After my post I went to my parents' house, opened the safe, took the earrings and left. Then after that I went again, told my parents I need time to process stuff and be my own self, and gave their house's keys, said I was leaving for good. There were some tears from my mom saying she couldn't believe I was such a bitter person. She raised me better. I was turning my back to my family over nothing, and finally that it was shameful that I would leave the family house without being married or anything. So it was never about me or she loving me or anything, but social pressure to keep an outdated tradition. My dad was very neutral, gave me a hug and wished me luck. For 2 months nothing happened and I barely had contact with my family, found a place to live, tried to heal, had real fun decorating my new home, your normal stuff. And then everything happened at once. For those 2 months my sister and mom never reached me, only my dad sent a text once a week asking how I was and wishing I was doing well. And then my sister's boyfriend/future husband/also my ex started to follow me on Instagram again. I found it weird, but anyway, after all, he's my sister's boyfriend/father of my niece/future brother-in-law/my ex-FWB. Then he started to like my stories and replying to them with heart emojis and looking good. This happened 3 times maybe? When I received the voicemail from my mom calling all sorts of names for going after a man that I knew was engaged, this was some kind of revenge over my poor sister, that I was causing her so much stress her blood pressure level was over moon. I was an inconsiderate femme fatale and she raised me better. Later I learned through a cousin that my sister took her fiancé's cell phone and found several conversations with several women including his attempts to talk to me, so of course she went to my mom crying about me trying to steal her fiancé. All messy tbh. Less than a week later another voicemail from mom asking me where the fuck were the earrings. She went looking after them and when she couldn't find them deduced it was me. She called me a thief. A disgrace. Dishonored me and said they didn't consider me family anymore. I was dead to them. And she will be taking legal actions against me for thief if it was possible. I had no option but to block her and my sister and other family members that sided with them. My dad later texted me to let me know my mom went nuts and they won't take any legal action. By the end of last month my cousin texted me saying my sister had given birth to my niece. I know I shouldn't but I did it. I went to the hospital with a gift while wearing my beautiful and fancy earrings. I was kicked out, of course, but it was worth it. I have no plans to see them ever again. Well, maybe my dad. Also my cousin, big gossiper, that girl, let me know my sister is getting married in May so she will have her happy ever after all. But I'm also living my best life. Let's dive into the second story. Story 2. Story 5. Begging for a second chance with my boyfriend but he completely stopped engaging with me. I have a younger sister Jenny. Jenny has been with and married to her husband Jake for almost 3 years, together for 5. They really do seem like a match made in heaven. However, one thing she's struggled with for a long time is infertility. Jenny has wanted kids for as long as I can remember. But when they started trying 3 years ago, it just never happened. They tried everything but their doctor just said Jenny wasn't capable of carrying a baby to term. They've since looked into adoption or even surrogacy, though it is way above their budget. I, on the other hand, have never wanted kids. Not when I was a girl, not now, and hopefully I'll never have any in the future. I don't know why, but children make me anxious and childbirth is just a nightmare to even think about. Recently I found out I was pregnant. It was a complete shock and sent me into a panic attack. My BF, 29M, was upset when I immediately suggested ending the pregnancy. I told him I didn't want kids ever, but he was adamant on not ending the pregnancy. He suggested taking full custody and raising the baby all by himself if that's what I wanted. He reluctantly even suggested adopting the baby out of my hands completely. Anything but he was not willing to be without the baby. My parents reacted worse. They said they wouldn't allow me to hurt a living being and offered other options. They even told my sister, who just jumped at the chance to adopt my baby, saying it was perfect and the baby could remain in the family and be raised by loving parents. Now, I don't doubt they'd make great parents. But I just don't want to go through a pregnancy. Every moment felt like an explosion would go off any moment. I hated it and I refused to continue with the pregnancy. I went behind their backs and got the procedure done. When they found out, my BF just coldly told me we are done and walked out. He isn't taking my calls now. Jenny wailed and insulted me before Jake took her home. She then blocked me and has since refused to even look at me. My parents keep saying they are disappointed and wished I wasn't their daughter so they wouldn't have to deal with me. I just want to fix things with them. They're my family and have always been kind and caring. I desperately want to sort their problems and for things to go back to how it was before I got pregnant. Any advice on how I can explain my feelings to my family? ETA, guys please. My parents, sister and BF are not bad people. I know I wasn't wrong for choosing what to do with my body and neither do I think they were wrong for being pro-life. My parents have cared for, raised and supported me all my life. Through my teenage years, my studies, my relationship issues, career problems, everything. I know they aren't bad people. I just want to know how I can explain my feelings to them because I'm confused and struggling with expressing myself. My BF and I have been together for 9 years, damn it. We literally grew up together and promised to always be there for each other and always choose each other. He supported me through everything. He offered every help he could think of during the 2.5 months I was pregnant. He tried to understand my fears and help me through it. I understand I was wrong to go behind his back, but that's done and now I want to know how we can move past this. He didn't leave when people made fun of him for dating me, when college life got too hectic and we had to go days without seeing each other, when my grandma died, when I was sick or when I was terrified of a baby. He was there for it all and I don't want to be without him. Please help me convince him to seek counseling or therapy or whatever it takes. I can't bear to lose him. ETA 2, I posted an update in my profile. I'm very thankful for how things are progressing. Please wish me luck. Additional comment from Oop about her family dynamics and boyfriend. That is not the case at all. My parents have never treated my sister and I differently and they have done a good job raising us both considering we finished school, have good jobs in fields we enjoyed, and have long-term successful relationships. They guided and supported us both through it all, and I don't think they can be called selfish for wanting grandkids and believing in pro-life. And please. My BF is literally the best thing I have in my life. We've been together for 9 years. Nearly a decade. We supported each other through everything in the past 9 years, and I refuse to believe the man who stayed up to care for me at nights I was sick, helped me with my workload/assignment/presentations, went all out to take the nerd of HS to prom, and stayed by my side every step when my grandmother, my favorite person in the world, passed away, could see me as extension of himself. Please, I don't need people telling me he is bad because he isn't. I need advice on how to work things with him. Please. Update. Hello everyone, I suppose I should give people an update since I've gotten a lot of DM and messages on my last post. Firstly, thank you to everyone who gave me advice and tried to see my POV. I wasn't happy to see all the messages telling me in denial, but I suppose it did get me to start thinking of my next actions instead of worrying and crying. My parents called me yesterday. My BF, yes, he still is my BF. We have not broken up, talked to them and actually helped them see my perspective. They had called him to apologize for my actions, but he was adamant that they needed to apologize to me. He explained Jenny wouldn't have gotten our baby anyway since he was planning to be a single parent and raise the baby himself. So, it was their fault for giving her false hope, not mine. And he even drove them to our house so we all could talk. My mom is still a bit upset, but they apologized and promised to talk to Jenny. I'm hopeful things will work out between us. We're sisters after all. After they left, my BF and I talked. He apologized for forcing me to do something I didn't want. He said he thought if he took good enough care of me, the fear would slowly dissipate and we could be happy. He now sees that was wrong. We hugged and cried for a long time. He kept saying sorry and I told him it was nothing. That as long as I had him, I would be fine. He then said he wanted to give us closure, but he still wanted to break up. At that, my heart sank. I fell to the floor crying and he held me through it all, cuddling me and kissing my head. He clearly still loved me and I loved him. I asked why we have to end this. He told me he wanted kids. Our kids, but if it couldn't be, he'd rather move on and not linger, as staying childfree was impossible for him. I promised him I loved him beyond anything and I'd do anything for us to remain together. But he just wouldn't listen. He kept saying us wasn't enough. That he wanted kids. He apologized again and tried to leave. At that point, I was desperate and I grabbed him and promised him I would get therapy. We could try therapy and maybe in a few more years, I'll be ready for kids. I promised to try for him but begged that he stay. He looked so sad. It broke my heart. I kept begging for a second chance and refused to let him go unless he said yes. Finally he said he'd think about it. So, that's where we're at. He asked for a week and promised he'll think about it. I scheduled an appointment for therapy tomorrow. I think I can get better. After all, the fear is irrational. And this incident has shown me the desire to be with Will, BF, is way stronger than my fear of pregnancy. Will has done so much for me. Has always been there for me. I have decided to give this a try. I can't be without Will and I'm willing to overcome anything to be with him. That's it for now. I think Will saw my post since he's on Reddit too and that spurred him into actions. Reddit also got me working too. So thank you for that. Please pray for me and my relationship. Story 6. Sued my stepfather for demanding he is the beneficiary of mom's will, wife sided with stepfather. Where do I even begin? I'm so lost right now I don't even know how to put things into words or find a good starting point. I guess it goes with how 2 months ago, my life was exactly where I wanted it to be. I've been with the girl of my dreams, 27F, for the last 3.5 years. We have house, animals, both of our families get along beautifully, and honestly, the last 3 years with her and my family and her family around the holidays have been some of the most warm, fuzzy memories I've had in my entire life, and, believe me, I've been thinking about those times a lot lately. So, like I said, this problem is going to come in parts because my entire life feels like it is on the brink of completely falling apart. My mother was a very, very wealthy woman. Most of my life, she and I did not get along very well, but I started working in the family business roughly 5 years ago, and since then we've actually developed a great relationship. It was one of those things where, after many years of feeling that my mother hated me, she was at last proud of me and not afraid to say she loved me and valued me. Then, last month in mid-March, she passed away. I'm tearing up thinking about this as I type because I've always felt that despite her resentment towards me in my early years, I loved my mother more than anyone else in this world. I won't say much more than that she had a hard life in spite of her wealth, and I feel I could write a whole book on our relationship. Anyway, she is gone and my siblings and I are now extremely wealthy and have taken possession of the business and all of her investments and property. If that isn't scary enough, I'm having a hard time figuring out what I need to do next. The business I was associated with, I can handle it, and my siblings and I have really come together on this and they seem to trust me with that part of it. But it doesn't wash away the hurt and guilt. I feel that I only got a few good years with the woman who gave me life. Anyway, my plan is to marry my GF by next year, and we've already discussed the prenup situation, which I will be getting due to my newfound wealth. She has been nothing but wonderful after my mom's death. But the problem comes in her family. I won't go into much detail, but I love these people like an extension of my own family, but they have already started trying to pry exactly how wealthy I am out of my GF, and her mom has always had a gravitational pull towards, for lack of a better term, pyramid schemes. Her first sibling, Terry, just got married and is working a fast food job. Terry and his wife have decided they will be starting a family soon and stated that they want wife to be a stay-at-home mom. This talk has only recently popped up and been brought to my attention, and I feel like I'm being paranoid, been directed at me, as there is absolutely no way they'd be able to afford this on the money they currently make or even while living in their small apartment. Like they are expecting me to help them out in a situation they are wholly unable to handle right now. Sibling number 2, Leslie, has run into some pretty serious legal trouble and is also pregnant. The father has a history of abuse and neither have steady incomes. They have recently come back into our lives after a 4-year-long absence between GF and Leslie, though, prior to this, the two have always been extremely close, as GF is with all of her siblings, as throughout their childhood, a lot of the time all they had was each other. Sibling number 3, Casey, who I hardly ever speak to, has even started chatting me up on Facebook more than she ever has in the entire time I've known her. Is this just my brain devolving into paranoia, or is this actually happening? Like the lottery horror stories you hear where people come out of the woodwork with their hands out when they smell money on someone they know? I know for a fact my mother, for all of her faults, fell victim to this when she inherited this money. She became increasingly bitter throughout her life due to all of the husbands and friends that took advantage of her for what she could do for them. She drank herself stupid every day for 30+ years and moved through carton after carton of cigarettes and alienated her own children. I don't want to be like that. I don't want that to happen. It's been less than a month that I've had more money than I know what to do with, and I'm afraid to spend a dime or do anything with it because I feel like my GF's family is only the beginning. What's worse, and will probably make me look like a total shithead, is my GF has already committed to helping Leslie. They were close their whole lives, and with all of the legal trouble and pregnancy, GF cries at night thinking about what's happening to her. She has not asked me to help financially or anything, but I have been there every step of the way to help support them and her as best as I can. But how will it look when my GF starts giving out her money to people while I don't, and get viewed as a selfish Scrooge? All of this is too much. The last 3 years were just so wonderful. So many magic trips to the beach, wonderful holidays, surrounded by not one but 2 families full of great people that accepted and loved me, and now it seems like, because I lost my mother and am getting a windfall because of it, everything is changing. I don't get to be happy with family anymore, and my whole life is crashing because of this. I know this is so far beyond a first world problem. Poor baby is now a multimillionaire and is a little sad he can't have a happy Christmas, wah wah, but I feel so broken. I miss my mom, I don't sleep at all, I hardly eat, and despite knowing full well the path my mother went down, I've been drinking a bit and smoking weed more than I ever had on a daily basis. In fact, my siblings seem to be coping just fine, and now I feel like everyone is out to get me. Even my GF is getting a little tired of hearing me voice my concerns over GF siblings 1 to 3 and her mom's sudden extra interest in me, which is understandable. They are all very close and take up for one another. Now, I'm even doubting myself and thinking it's all in my head. Maybe too many times my mother drunkenly telling me about all the times she trusted people and was let down. I'm just so lost. Update. First, I just want to say wow. This whole thing blew and has made me feel much better about the whole situation. Thank you everyone for your understanding, condolences, and advice. I read the lottery winning thread many of you linked to, and while I'm not currently $300 million richer, I will look into a smaller scale version of all of the things you offered up. I'm not sure if it's worth writing a whole update, but last night, I called my sister and drove an hour to her house and stayed the night with her, her husband, and my nieces and nephew. Over some beer she and I started talking about the whole situation. Oddly, it's the first time we've really talked about anything alone without attorneys or my other siblings around since my mother died. Side note, she passed away on March 8th, and I know there was at least one comment that said this seemed like everything was moving too fast. Anyway, it turns out she isn't as together about everything as I thought she was. I showed her the thread and all of the replies, and both she and I agreed to talk to a financial advisor and look into getting attorneys to help us with this. She had been primarily working with my mom's attorney up until now. I'm going to look into setting up a trust as well. Nothing too crazy, but enough that I can give small gifts to these people and have a cap on it, so to speak, for whenever it does come up. I talked to my GF on the phone this morning and kind of laid it all out, and she was in total agreement. She said she was surprised Casey has suddenly started talking to me and that it was very suspicious. She also said that Terry's wife brought up the kids again and was showing her houses they wanted to get that were way out of their price range, and my GF kind of played dumb and just kept asking questions about how they plan to afford all that, so I know she and I are, for now at least, on the same page. Lastly, when I was talking to my sister last night, she said something that both uplifted and destroyed me. We were talking about our mom and what a hard ass she was, and my sister said that one of the last conversations she had with our mom, my mother said, "You and my brother trust Windfall Curse, he knows what he's doing and he will make sure everyone is okay." Anyway, thank you all again for all of your comments. I feel like a better and stronger person just one day later. TL, Doctor, talked things over with my sister. Looking into an attorney/FA. Non-OOP note, I'm flaring this as inconclusive as OOP never updated after this and has been inactive for 7 years. I hope OOP settled the matter peacefully and his GF sided with him all throughout. Regardless, I wish the best of luck to OOP, whatever he is today. Well, isn't life full of wonders? OP saw this post and made an update through the comments. I'll post it here. Update 2. Hey everyone. To start, I just recovered my account after many years and I saw so many kind PMs that it really did make my heart full. Really. Thank you everyone. I can't describe to you what it feels like. I lost my mom 7 years ago and, honestly, some days it doesn't feel like it has gotten any better. That life would still be better if she was here / had a chance to build a better relationship. So, where do I begin from so long ago? So, in an attempt to pick up where this post left off, my mom has just died and I was settled with a whole lot of first world problems. The good, I managed to invest in crypto with a large chunk of my money and, by some miracle entirely out of my know-how and against the advice of my former financial advisor, bought low and sold high years later. This made me the wealthiest of my siblings by far. My sisters and my relationship has grown thick as thieves. We sold our mom's company, despite some complications, and went in on a number of real estate investments together, and it's worked out very well in spite of the pandemic. She is my very best friend in this world and my constant protector as my big sister, and all of her kids get everything I have when all is said and done. The not so good, I am divorced. The GF in the previous post and I did end up getting married, no expense spared, and despite all of the Reddit warning I received, I spread the wealth amongst her family. It turns out, however, that she was not who I thought she was, and I was not who she thought I was, as she decided to attract a boyfriend during our marriage and she paid for their outings through my account. To say I hit a low would be an understatement. However, I am still good friends with my Bill and he has shown nothing but gratitude for my helping his growing family in the ensuing years. I love him and I hope to keep him close for the rest of my life. Otherwise, I traveled and did too many drugs and became an alcoholic. Yep. Just like my mother. However, unlike my mother, this is something I'm actively working on. Also, during the grieving period of my mother's death, I was sued by my stepfather as he contested the will and my brother sided with him. So for what felt like an eternity, I was fighting against my brother and stepfather, footing ridiculous legal bills, and drinking like they were about to make it illegal. Eventually, thank the gods of old, they lost and I was suddenly quite single, against my will, but had quite a bit of wealth. However, after all of the legal problems, thanks to my incredible attorneys during my divorce and being sued, I bought a motorcycle and a la my hero, Neil Peart, RIP, traveled North and South America. I saw so much and wrote about all of it, but also picked up a pretty terrible drinking habit along the way and when I returned home. Something with which I am still struggling as I type this. I haven't spoken to my brother for almost 4 years, which crushes me every day of my life. I miss him so much, but I just can't seem to get through to him or my stepfather, who I also love very much, in that I would give them most of what they want money-wise, but they have since become evangelical Christians, whole other can of worms, and what I'm willing to do is suddenly not enough. I'm also paying for my ex-wife's expenses because, frankly, I loved her and I thought she loved me. Money doesn't mean much anymore to me and some days it feels like that is all I'm good for. I want her to be happy despite all of the heartache and pain. It was both of us. I see that now despite her stepping out. That being said, I have been involved with a young lady for the past few years who has her own career and she is beautiful and makes me feel like a good person when I'm with her. I'm taking it slow, but she is, frankly, out of this world incredible. If marriage ever exists in my future again, it will be with her. I visit my mom's grave often, That's in parenthesis as she was cremated and her ashes spread along her favorite coastline, and it's always hard. I often ask her if she was proud of me and if I'm on the right path, usually having brought a few bottles of her favorite wine with me, and I know I'm not as I only hear the ocean breeze in response. Every year it's the hardest thing I have to do without the worry of how I'm going to pay my bills. It's a grand privilege, I know, but I miss her. We had so many hard years. So many arguments and fights. She told me more than once that she loved me only because she had to but was disgusted by me otherwise. Still, I really felt towards the end that she felt some sense of pride in me. Like I had finally done something worth remembering with her business only for her to up and die. Do I feel alone still? Yes. Absolutely. As a person, I sometimes feel I do not have any worth whatsoever but the money I can offer. I guess that is the monkey's paw part of this whole thing? I have 7 total good friends, I journaled and counted during my motorcycle odyssey, for which I am grateful. One of them is my sister and I am so grateful to share DNA with such a wonderful human being. In the process I have lost my only father figure and my baby brother who sided with him and my wife who I thought was my great love. I'm older now and getting older. Still, I have the 7 and my new lady and I feel enough from that to push forward day to day. I know this is probably not the happy ending people wanted but, if I've taken anything away from this, things aren't clean. They are always messy and complicated. Humans are hard. I have a few houses which is a great privilege but I have lost a lot of the human connection of which I was worried about during my original post, self-fulfilling prophecy maybe? I often think about those beach vacations or cozy holidays filled with so much love and acceptance and warmth from so long ago that I cry. It still breaks my heart knowing those days are behind me. I miss them so much but also know that I can never get that back and my only hope exists in the road in front of me. I know my life changed completely the day my mother died and I lost a great deal in the years after but I still have years ahead. In conclusion, I guess my original problem from so many years ago is solved but I have a lot more life left to live, hopefully. Finally and most importantly, thank you all for the extraordinarily kind words and messages and the repost in this subreddit. I suppose that is the end, for now. Non-oop note, again, oop, if you read this, I hope everything goes well for you. But, if you don't mind my advice, you need to cut toxic people off your life. Toxic people will only give you stress and sadness, and ask yourself this, what am I gaining from this? Regardless, I wish you the best of luck. Story 7. Childhood friend disappears after years of isolation and abuse by mentally ill father. When I was around 10 I met a strange boy who seemed to appear from nowhere. He and I became super close friends but after about a year he disappeared. I never found a way of contacting him again. I remember the boy turning up. It was the middle of summer and my friends and I were swimming in a lake in one of my parents' fields. I grew up in a small farmer's town, with a population of no more than 200 and so everyone knew everyone. There were 2 schools in the town, one for boys and one for girls. I'm not sure why they split them by gender, and I'm pretty sure both have merged now, but that's what it was like when I lived there. I'm going to tell it how I remember it happening, but my friend who was there at the time remembers it slightly differently than I do. So, as I was saying, my friends, I think it was about 4 of us in total, and I were swimming in the lake at the bottom of one of my parents' fields. It was about a 15-minute walk from my main house. We had been playing there for a while, when we heard someone calling to us. We looked over and saw the boy standing at the edge of the lake, completely naked. Once we noticed him, he shouted if he could play with us. He looked to be around the same age as us, maybe a little older but not by much. He was super pale, like white pale. I remember being amazed and kind of jealous of his super bright green eyes. He also had shoulder-length white blonde hair, like Draco Malfoy blonde. I looked to my friends, and we said yeah, and he came in the lake with us. None of us recognized him. Which as I said was weird because we had all lived in this tiny town for our whole lives and everyone basically knew everyone living there. He introduced himself as Richard, but he said he prefers if we called him Richie, so we did. I remember asking Richie where he was from, but he would go all awkward and would never give a straight answer. Anyway, after a while more of playing in the lake Richie seemed fun and I invited him to come back to my house for supper. He straight away said he would love to come, and my friend was like, don't you need to ask your mom? To which Richie said something like, oh she won't mind. Remember how I said Richie was completely naked? Well that wasn't so strange. In fact, I'm pretty sure we all were. My friends and I were all boys, and we would skinny dip in the lake normally, so it didn't stick out to me when he first arrived like that. But what did stick out to me was when we got out of the lake dried and dressed ourselves, Richie had no clothes with him to get dressed into. Which I remember thinking was super weird, but he said something like, oh I must have forgot to bring them. Which again, I thought was very weird, Like, how do you forget your clothes? I wasn't sure how my parents would react to me bringing home a naked boy, so I gave him my briefs and my overshirt to put on. But yeah, that stuck out as very odd. My friends went back home, and Richie and I went to my house. My dad was like, "Where's his clothes?" I just made something up. I'm pretty sure I said something like his clothes got wet, so we left them in the sun to dry. I got him some trousers to put on. We ate supper, which I remember him having 3 or 4 plates of. As I said, Richie is a super skinny boy. I was pretty small and skinny at the time. But he was definitely skinnier than I was, so I was confused how he ate so much lol. Richie was super polite and sweet to everyone while he was at my house. After supper I took him upstairs to my room and we played on my Nintendo 64 together. He had never seen one before and was super amazed by it. At the time I thought he had never seen one before and was super amazed by it. At the time I thought he had never seen one because they were so old. This was 2010. But my family was poor and that's all I had. It started to get dark, and I asked him if he wanted to sleep over. He was really excited by that and said yeah. I checked with my parents, but I knew they wouldn't mind because they were both super drunk. So, we continued playing on N64 until it was super late. After a while, I said it was time that we went to bed as I was tired, but I don't remember him seeming tired at all. Richie asked if he could shower before as we had been playing in my fields and he was really muddy. As he was showering, I made my bed for us and put a movie on the TV for us to watch as we went to sleep, and I got into bed. Richie came in like 5 minutes later and was completely naked again. I was like, "Did you walk from the bathroom like that?" He was like, "Yeah," and didn't seem to care at all, so even though I thought it was strange I didn't say anything. He got into my bed, I asked him if he wanted any pajamas and he said no, it was too hot, which to be fair I do remember it being really hot that day. I had a Scooby-Doo movie on, and he was really excited by it, and didn't know anything about them, which I guess isn't too weird. But looking back, he didn't seem to know any pop culture stuff at all. I mean, we were pretty behind the times in my small town, but we still knew most pop culture. I had slept in quite a lot the next day, but when I woke up Richie wasn't in my room. I went and asked my mom if she'd seen him and she said he left early that morning after his parents rang our house. How they knew he was with us or where to ring I'm still not sure. Richie had taken some shorts from my room because my mom said he couldn't leave without clothes on. I was a little disappointed he left without me, or at least without saying goodbye or without leaving any way of contacting him again. He turned up again a couple days later when my friends and I were swimming in the lake again. This time he brought clothes, but I'm pretty sure he only brought some briefs and a shirt with no pants. Which again, I thought was weird. Over the next year, him and I became super close. We were like brothers. Over the year, I asked if I could see his home or meet his family. But any time I asked anything personal about him, he would go awkward and not want to talk about it. Or he would just change the subject. But I could see it made him feel uncomfortable, so I didn't push him to tell me. He did tell me he was homeschooled, which I thought was cool. Because on my mind that meant no school. As I said, we became really close over the year. I felt like he was more than a friend to me. It's difficult to explain, it's almost like we clicked from the first time we met. We became close really quick, and I felt like I could tell him anything and he would always help and support me. He helped me through so many hard times, and he definitely encouraged me to be a better person. It was almost as if he could sense when I was going through anything. For example, when my grandma passed away, I went out into my fields to cry as I didn't want to do it in front of my family. But after sitting down in some random place Richie turned up and sat next to me, he said some things that I remember helping me a lot. When I asked him how he found me he said that we were just on a walk. Not too long after this, he just vanished. It had been a little over a year since the first time he appeared at the lake. It was around September the year after, so it had been around a year and 2/3 months. He never turned up again, never said goodbye, never left a trace. I was massively upset, I really missed him. I would walk around the fields looking for him and I would hang out by the lake where we first met. Hoping that he would turn up, but he never did again. I still don't know what happened to him. I've tried searching social media for him but with no luck, and since he would never tell me that much about his life I don't have that much to go on. I asked my parents what they remember of him. They said they remember him being odd, and that they were unsure about him at first, especially how he had a tendency to strip naked whenever he felt like it. But they also said that he and I were inseparable and wherever I was he was sure to be found there too. They said they remember me being heartbroken when he stopped appearing, and they weren't sure whether they should call the police about him being gone, but they never did. I kind of wish they did. I suppose this is a long shot, but if you're reading this Richie, reach out to me. I'd love to speak to you again and get some answers to all the weird things about you. It's completely possible that there isn't anything paranormal about Richie, but it is definitely strange. Update 1. I am visiting my parents for a couple weeks. I will search the house for any photos of us, Richie and I, that I could share here. Though, with 7 older brothers and a lot of family photos, I'm not sure I'll find anything. Also, there is a fun day at the local church to celebrate the schools breaking up for summer holiday. As suggested by a commenter, I am going to attend the coffee morning where all the old people who live in the village go. Even if this means waking up at 7 a.m. I am going to be asking around to see if anyone remembers Richie. I will update this thread tomorrow if I find anything. Thank you everyone for your help. Update 2. I have asked around at my local church today. No one seemed to remember Richie. I started to lose a little hope. But word must have spread around that I was looking for someone. Because an old lady, I'll call her Sharon in this, who I know, but haven't ever really spoken to before, came up to me. She says she thinks she might know Richie's maternal great-aunt. She is going to try and find the contact details for me so I can reach out and see if the great-aunt has any info on Richie. Sharon says if Richie does belong to the family she's thinking of, then he would have lived at a cottage around an hour and 15-minute walk from the main village. She said the cottage is secluded, with no neighbors. Sharon has no idea why they disappeared, but she said she isn't that close to Richie's great-aunt. I hope this is good news. I might actually be a step closer to finding Richie again. I'll update with more news if I find any. I'm hoping that this possible aunt is still alive and hasn't changed contact details. Wish me luck. Update 3. I have contacted Richie's potential great-aunt, PGA for short lol, with no luck. I called the number that Sharon gave to me a couple times. With no answer, though I have left a message explaining who I am. I am sent a letter first class to the address that Sharon gave me as well, which should get there tomorrow or the day after. Hopefully the PGA is still living at the address, and I am able to get some answers. In the letter I also explained why I was interested in contacting her, and I gave my phone number if she would like to call me instead of writing back. I will update as soon as have anything new. Oh, and one more thing. I visited the cottage where Sharon thought Richie could have been living. The cottage is abandoned and run down. Seems likely that he could have been living here. It gave off massive creepy vibes though. Update 4. I have heard back from the PGA, I'll name her Jane. Someone suggested that I check if the number was linked to any apps like WhatsApp. It was, and I reached out to Jane there. This seemed to do the trick and she messaged me back relatively quickly. After describing Richie to her, she said pretty confidently that she is related to Richie. This is where things take a bad turn. Jane hasn't been in contact with Richie's family for many years. But she does have the phone number of Richie's older sister. I had no idea he even had any siblings at all. Jane insinuated that I won't find what I'm looking for when contacting Richie's sister. I fear the worst. It seems as though something has happened to Richie. Jane told me that Richie's sister will be able to tell me more, gave me her number and then hung up the phone. I'm incredibly anxious to reach out to Richie's sister. This could be the end to the search that has taken me so long. But I fear that it isn't the ending that I have dreamed of. I will update this thread once I know more. Update 5. This is an update to my original post from a couple days ago. Which can be found here though my original post was only around 4 days ago, that is eternity in Reddit time. So I am not sure if anyone will even care about this update. First and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you who have helped with through this process and have helped me find closure on my childhood best friend and my first and only true love. This journey has been difficult. Many years I have searched for answers on where Richie is now. Sadly, it is not good news. Deep down, I think I feared and perhaps avoided searching for Richie in case this was the outcome. With the help of everyone here and so many lovely commenters, I tracked down a distant relative to Richie, who put me in contact with Richie's older sister. A sister that I did not know existed. For the sake of clarity I will name the sister Sarah. Sarah helped put into context Richie, his odd behavior, his unwillingness to show me his home and his disappearance. Sarah and Richie both suffered abuse and neglect at the hands of their father. Their father, who suffered with severe mental health issues and drug-related problems for most of his adult life. Their father was terrified of the outside world, and thus kept them secluded away in secret. According to Sarah, their father was convinced that the world was months away from ending at any given time. He was convinced that the devil was planning to take over his mind and body. And was convinced that Jesus had spoken to him, and told him the only way to keep him and his family safe was to keep them secluded from the outside world. Sarah shared that their father would not often be physically abusive, which I suppose is of some relief. Richie and his family would move often throughout his childhood, never staying in one place for too long as his father feared that the devil would soon find them. Sarah said they were most likely moved in the middle of the night with no forewarning. Though she can't remember the specific time they were moved from my town. This helps to explain how Richie seemed to appear one day, and disappear 15 months later. Richie passed away at age 15, around 2.5 years after vanishing from my town. Sarah struggled to go into the details of Richie's death, and I didn't want to push her into sharing something that was painful for her. Though it seemed that Richie took his own life. Sarah told me that Richie would often speak of me, and the time we spent together. And that all Richie ever wanted to do was to come back and find me. Sadly, he never managed that. She said she thought that I was just imaginary. She isn't sure how Richie would sneak out of the house to meet with me, but said that their father would keep them locked in their rooms for days and sometimes weeks at a time. Sarah told me she has a collection of Richie's diaries, which I do remember him writing occasionally. She has offered to send them to me, which is lovely of her. She told me that a lot of the writing is about me, about our time together, about how he wanted to find me again so we could run away together. Again, she never thought I was a real person. Hearing that was so incredibly bittersweet. I look forward to reading those diaries, even though it will be incredibly difficult at the same time. She said she is glad that Richie managed to have an impact on someone on this world. I wish that I was able to express the impact that Richie had on my life. I wish I could tell Richie the impact he had on my life. I want everyone to know Richie. I want everyone to know what an amazing, kind and beautiful person Richie was. This post is difficult for me to write. Deep down, I think that I resisted searching for Richie more in case this was the outcome. Sarah told me a lot more information, but I've decided to leave out most to respect her privacy. Sarah is away and safe from her father, which I am so glad about. Again, I just want to express how thankful I am for all of you who have helped. For all of you who have offered emotional support. Thank you so much. Richie, I love you. I'm sorry I couldn't help you. I'm sorry I didn't pick up on the signals that you were in danger. I hope you can forgive me. Richie, you were the only true friend I've ever had. It's so hard for me to write this. I feel so sick that I didn't do more. Richie, I want you to know you saved me so many times throughout my life. So many low moments in my life have been helped because of the memories of you. I am so sorry I wasn't there for you the same way you were there for me. I love you so much, Richie. Update 6. Hello everyone. Almost 1 year ago I made a Reddit post searching for answers about a childhood friend of mine that went missing. It received a moderate amount of attention, and with the people of Reddit's help I was able to track down the relatives of my missing friend. I posted this under a different, now deleted account. However, I have sent the mods of this subreddit proof of me being the oop. I deleted the Reddit account because honestly I didn't want to think about what happened to Richie anymore, as it was too painful for a long time after I discovered the truth. Recently that post has resurfaced on this subreddit, and so I thought I'd give you all an update on where I am today and how I'm doing, as well as how Sarah is doing. It still pains me to think about Richie, and think about how I could have and should have helped him and how I failed to save him. It does really hurt to look back on it. I really don't have many friends and I suffer from pretty bad anxiety, and I just wish I had Richie here with me. Sarah and I still occasionally talk, but not really as often as I wish we could. I have met her IRL once, which was nice. I hope that me posting this update is alright on this subreddit. It just seemed to me that so many were touched by Richie's story that I thought I would put this out there, and I'm happy to answer questions of anyone who has them. Update 7. This post got a lot of replies, and I am trying to make my way through and answer as much as I can. I didn't think this post would get so much attention, especially since this was posted relatively recently. To answer a couple of the common questions, yes, I am currently in therapy. I started it not too long ago along with some medication, as I have suffered for a while with severe anxiety. I am currently requesting permission from Sarah before I post any of Richie's journal entries, as I feel she should have final say on if she wants those out on the internet. No, I am not writing a book about Richie. No, this is not a promotion for a book. If anyone was to write a book about Richie and his life, I would think it should be Sarah. However, she does not have any interest in sharing her story. She would much rather leave the past in the past, and honestly I can't blame her. It really breaks my heart that there are so many people in here sharing that they knew a Richie, or they were a Richie. I feel like so many children, even now, go under the radar, the lives they live and the abuse they receive with no one there to help. It hurts to think that there could have been so many with us today that have sadly passed on and are no longer with us. I think everyone has a right to be remembered, and I am so glad that Richie has had an impact on so many people here. Also, I'm sorry if I don't respond to a comment. There are a lot on here that I thought would be too difficult to respond to. I can say a million times that I shouldn't feel guilty, and I know that also. But it is very hard not to, and it's very hard to hear that I did all I could do when Rich isn't around anymore. That might sound mopey or ungrateful. I am grateful of all the love I have been sent. I am just not entirely sure if I deserve it. Update 8. This is strange for me to be back, on my third account no less, but I just wanted to give a short update about my life and the life of me and Sarah now. The day I created this account u/1 Queasy Dude V2 was Richie's birthday. It has been almost 10 years since he committed suicide. And though I think of him less now than I did before, I still think of him. It seems insane to me that it has been almost 3 years since I posted the original post. Sarah and I speak, but still not often. We met up on his birthday last year, but we didn't this year. The year before that I didn't even know it was his birthday. It would have been around the time I posted the first Baru post. Sarah is doing really well, at least from what she tells me, but again we aren't close. Sarah and I love the fact that this subreddit keeps the memory of Richie alive. She's really grateful that so many people know her brother's story. I encouraged her to make a post, but she said having that many eyes on her would be far too scary. I can understand that. I am very grateful to the mods of this subreddit, who in the few encounters I have had with them, they seem like genuine and kind people. I have had so many people reach out to me over the years and say, thank you as they were a Richie. I think that's really sweet. I hope many others share their stories of Richies. Richies deserve to be remembered. I don't believe in an afterlife, not anymore. Maybe I did at one point. Richie was a real one, in every way. So, I am glad that his memory can at least live on. Sarah did not give me permission to post Richie's journals. Which I am glad about, because that would have been an invasion of his privacy too far. He has some very personal inner thoughts in them, and sometimes even I feel weird reading. You can very much tell they were written by someone who was in a lot of pain. And it is so sad for me to see them get more and more dark as he grows up. It makes me still upset that I couldn't help him in the way that he helped me. One page I will always cherish is a drawing he made of us both, labeled love. Relevant comment. Oop. I don't find it rude at all, don't worry. I consider Richie my first romantic relationship, but it was in a very childlike way if you understand. Richie and I both loved each other in a way that's stronger than friendship, and probably exceeded even normal romantic relationships. It's difficult to explain honestly.